Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marco Jure Show. It is Wednesday, November 26, 2025. Thank you for tuning in to today's show to hear all of the relevant, groundbreaking news here in America and around the world. The only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Please don't forget to follow the show on wherever you might get your podcasts. Share with whoever needs to hear the truth so we can make high IQs popular in America again. I think we all love to see that. I hope everyone's ready for the best hour radio has to offer, uncensored and ready to go right before Thanksgiving. Tomorrow, I may do a show for you on the history of Thanksgiving in America. I'll probably be recording it later today and drop it sometime tomorrow. So maybe tomorrow, if your house is noisy, you want to get away for a little bit, go for a walk, maybe tune on to the show. Maybe after some turkey and gravy or after the football game you're watching. You know, I might have a show for you, and it'll be good, of course, as always. Just, history. The history of Thanksgiving, why it's important, and what's the meaning here in America, of course. No politics tomorrow, just straight basic facts, as always. Save the political talk for, the dinner table. I'm kidding, of course. Don't get in a fight over politics or, stuffing or the drumsticks. But maybe tell people about my show, do me a solid on Thanksgiving. I'd like that. I think it'd be a good thing. Let's get down to work, folks. I got a lot going on for you today, as always. Lots to cover. Never any shortage of wild, crazy topics that we're going to go over today, of course. And, let's get to it, shall we? In the Hill. I couldn't even believe this when I saw this. Maybe you won't either. Judge dismisses DOJ criminal cases against Comey and Letitia James. Now, I want to stop and think about this. A federal judge now dismisses the case of two of the president's political adversaries. Is how we're categorizing them now. On Monday, after finding that the prosecutor Trump handpicked to pursue the charges against them was unlawfully appointed. And of course, they're referring to U.S. District Judge Cameron Curry, said that Lindsay Halligan, the U.S. attorney selected by President Trump to persecute former FBI Director Dim Comey, and now the New York Attorney General Letitia James, was never eligible to assume the post. So we're going to go over why that's obviously not always the case. But the 120-day clock on the interim appointments expired during the previous prosecutor's tenure, so is what the judge is alleging here, meaning that the authority to appoint a replacement fell within the district's federal judges, not the Attorney General Pam Bondi. So here's the problem. They're trying to do a bait and switch right now. Of course, they're trying to say this person was illegally appointed, therefore the charges can't go anywhere, and we're dismissing the case. Here's the problem. The president can pick whoever he likes for this position. It's whoever he wants. He doesn't have to pick any specific person. Now they're trying to come out and say, this is what Curry wrote. In light of these principles, I conclude that all actions flowing from Miss Halligan's defense appointment, including securing and signing Mr. Comey's indictment, constitute unlawful exercises of executive power and must be set aside. This is what she said in her dismissing of the case for Comey. She dismissed the indictments without prejudice, meaning the Justice Department could try to bring these charges again with another prosecutor, though the path forward is uncertain. So here we go. We have Comey and James mounting parallel bids to disqualify Halligan from these cases. She was the sole prosecutor who sought these indictments from grand juries, which they then claimed rendered the charging document void and required dismissal ahead of their trials. So while, Dim Comey came forth and was saying things like, well, I welcome this case, again, ridiculousness. It's really ridiculous that, again, we have to go through all these loopholes now to get an indictment of these two frauds here. That's what it comes down to. I don't know what more I can say about this to you, other than we have a broken justice system. Donald Trump wanted, obviously, Halligan to take this position. And she's doing what she has said she's going to do. James Comey, the guy who shared classified documents pertaining to, obviously, President Trump, obviously Hillary Clinton, shared these documents with his friend, Dan Richman, who isn't supposed to have these documents, who then leaked it to the press, by the way. And we're supposed to let this just go away? This is the kind of nonsense we're dealing with right now. Absolute nonsense is what's happening right now. And, of course, we know that Curry, an appointee of the former President Bill Clinton, isn't that good how that works out? Said the law's text plainly favors these defendants now. Isn't that nice? So you can't even bring these people to trial now. It says here that the text and structure of the subsection in particular make clear the appointment power shifts to the district court after the 120-day period and does not revert to the attorney general if a court-appointed U.S. attorney leaves office before a Senate-confirmed U.S. attorney is installed. Well, again, she's in this position. Why can't she do that? I mean, this is what they're trying to say now. They're trying to allude that she doesn't have any power. That she has to be Senate approved, of course. So when the judges extended Siebert's tenure, he was Trump's nominee. But after he resigned, Halligan was appointed in September 22nd and is now the president's long-term pick for this position. So now, days after Halligan took office, Comey was hit with these charges of making false statements, obstructing justice, stemming from the 2020 testimony where he lied to the Senate Judiciary Committee. And here we go. So we're just going to throw this out now? We can't do it anymore? Again, it's really astonishing to me how these people get away with everything under the sun. Now, of course, we're talking about statute of limitations now on these counts that he faced. We're days from running out when he was first indicted. That's why, again, it was brought so quickly. And Curry wrote in her memorandum that it was an invalid indictment. That would not toll the clock in the same way. That was a valid one. So, again, I don't know what more I could say about this to you. But don't the Democrats always look out for each other? Don't they always just seem to look out for each other in these situations? Now, of course, Comey and Letitia James had both pleaded not guilty, of course. But then we're bringing up the charges again that this is always politically motivated, that they haven't done anything wrong, okay? Things of that nature. Will they be brought to justice? Probably not. Probably not. This is what we see time and time again. Well, you can't bring this case past the statute of limitations. That didn't stop him from going after Trump, did it? In New York, right? They said that the case had clearly left the statute of limitations. Did that stop Alvin Bragg? Of course not. Of course not. So they pick and choose what they want to do. They make up different reasons. Well, this person wasn't really appointed by the Senate, so we can't really bring the case. It's just not right. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. Now, again, if Halligan goes through and the Senate does approve her, can she bring up the case again? Only time will tell. So that's happening in the judiciary world, of course. Isn't it interesting, though? The judges always seem to let the criminals off. It always seems to be the way that these things go. The judges let the criminals go. Now, obviously, Comey had to have lied under oath. We know this. He had to have. There's no way he couldn't have. Either he's lying or Andy McCabe's lying. Which one of them are lying under oath? Who committed perjury? That's the question. We'll talk about Letitia James momentarily as well. This is one of the three big cases going on. It's obviously the Dim Comey case in the FBI. And then obviously we have the Letitia James case of falsifying documents stating that her primary residence is in Virginia all of a sudden to get more favorable loans. And of course we have Eric Swalwell, the great Swalwell, right? This guy is so pathetic. I mean, he's really a pathetic human being when it comes down to it. When you look at Eric Swalwell, you have to think low IQ. You have to think bottom of the barrel. Someone with just an empty suit, really, when it comes down to it. And an empty brain, by the way. But here we go. We have Eric Swalwell all of a sudden now that he's been charged, just like Letitia James and Tim Comey, now all of a sudden he's concerned about lawfare. Again, when the president was charged with 91 felonies, this was apparently justice. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. But all of a sudden now, because of the DOJ being referred to go after him, think about Adam Schiff as well, Letitia James, for all allegedly lying on a mortgage fraud application. Mortgage application, of course, the fraud that came with it. Forget Schiff lives in Maryland and not in California. But get this, I did some sleuthing on this. Understand this. Schiff claims that he lives in a 650 square foot condo in Burbank, California. By the way, just for context, square foot, it's 25 by 25. Very small for a man of his stature, of course, and his prestige, right, in the world. However, right, he's saying this is his primary residence. However, where he lives, with his entire family, by the way, for well over a decade, in Potomac, Maryland, he lives in a 3,420-foot home. Again, where records shows that he's using this as his primary residence. He can't do that. He's not representing Maryland. He's representing California. And again, you have to live in the state, of course, where you reside. That's your permanent residence. Does that make sense, though, that you would go from your home in the state of which you live, and that would be a tiny, tiny home, versus the home you're living in Maryland? I would bet green money he hasn't lived in California in some time. Now, in the case of Letitia James, same thing. Lives in New York. She bought a home in Norfolk, Virginia. Claims that this is her second residence, allowing her to get a more favorable mortgage rate interest rate. So, again, how could this be your second residence if she lives in New York and works in Albany? And again, just so we're clear, Norfolk is just over 500 miles away from Albany, about 363 miles from New York City in Manhattan to Norfolk. Something isn't right here. But it's the Republicans, don't you know? They should notice this. This is the problem. And then, of course, we come to the great Eric Swalwell. Right? The great Eric Swalwell. I call him the gas man. Right, remember that? He was on with Chris Matthews on Hardball, and he let one go. Then he tried to deny that. What a fool this clown is. Take a listen.
So far, the evidence is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election. And the complaint that I've heard from Republicans all last week was that you don't have anyone who...
Okay, there's Eric Swalwell in a nutshell. Or in a gas mask. Who knows, right?
...him cheat an election.
Come on. Who could go... How could you deny that? You're on the mic. The sound came through. I mean, it obviously was him. You went on Seth Meyers, too, to deny. What a schmuck he is. I can't believe it. But that's who he is. He's a liar through and through. Maybe he was excited. He's bashing Trump then. He bashes Trump now. That's all he does. He couldn't help himself. This is the same guy, Eric Swalwell, while under the Biden DOJ, that easily we can tell this is, under no scrutiny. We can just blatantly see this. It's very blatant and evident to anyone looking at it, that the DOJ used lawfare to go after Catholics while attending Latin Mass. Did he say anything about that? Not a thing. How about the protesters that are pro-life, that are presenting in front of abortion clinics, getting visits by the DOJ? Did he say anything about that? Exercising their First Amendment right. Did he say anything? No, of course not. How about the lack of due process for the J6 protesters? He was in Congress then. They're in solitary confinement without any type of wrongful conviction? Did he say anything about that? Their due process, their rights. Not a thing. How about surveilling Charlie Kirk's TPUSA? Labeling it a terrorist organization, right? I know the ADL did at least for that, but why are they where's this surveilling this organization from? What is this all about? Where was Swalwell through all this? But when it's him, when it's his Democratic crony friends, then all of a sudden Donald Trump is playing lawfare. You see how this works. Not a good look, Eric. Not a good look. And now, while the gas man hasn't been formally charged, of course, he's been referred to by the DOJ for using his D.C. home as his primary residence. Again, same thing. He's supposed to be living in Northern California. Again, he denies it, just like he denied stinking up the airwaves back in 2019. He's saying now that the house is his wife's. Well, hey, Putz, you're married to your wife, aren't you? If that's her primary residence, how could your other primary residence be in California? It's so stupid. But now Swalwell is being held accountable, and he doesn't like it, right? The Democrats never like it. So naturally, it's all about Trump. Now, the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, Bill Pultz, who brought this accusation against him, but he always plays the victim, Swalwell. It's all because he criticized President Trump. This is why this is happening. If he wasn't criticizing Trump, we'd never know about it. Now he's suing Pultz in federal court, alleging abuse of power and a violation of the Privacy Act. That's the way in which you can obtain documents. Again, he had no issue surveilling Charlie Kirk, getting documents there, surveilling all these other people, again, that they labeled terrorists. Didn't have an issue with any of it. Now all of a sudden we're supposed to believe this guy? Come on. It's so pathetic. It's very, very pathetic that this is the path, of course, which that he chooses to go on. But here we go. We have another article on Swalwell. Here he is telling who I don't even know who does this show. The Arena on the Crime News Network. I don't even know who runs it. I don't even care. He says, we Democrat Avengers fighting for truth over Trump. This is what this guy does. Has he signed a bill that has made your life better? Californians, can you point to anything that he's written or done as a lawyer that you can point to? No, you can't. He hasn't done anything. He just runs his mouth on Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, all this crap that nobody watches. Sure, he's been on Colbert. This is all he does. He goes on the news and he bashes Trump. That's all he does. He's like a Maxine Waters. That's all they do. But on Tuesday on CNN's The Arena, Representative Eric Swalwell, the gas man, said that he and his fellow Democratic Avengers would fight for truth over President Donald Trump. What does that mean? Well, he says, what has given me hope is that not a single one of them, no one from Mark Kelly to Alyssa Slotkin to Jimmy Kimmel, hell of a group right there, who's also, had his show taken off the air because of President Trump. First of all, that's not true. It had nothing to do with President Trump. It had to do with the fact that his show sucked. Now we could argue Brendan Carr came in and made some suggestions as the FCC chair, but really it came down to the fact that his show's losing money. Same with Colbert, losing money. Nobody watches these shows. But then they go to, well, the show's getting canceled because of President Trump. Did the show get canceled? Is it still on? Yeah. Do people still not watch it? Nope. Nobody still watches it. Are they losing money? Yep. Okay. So his days are numbered. His days are numbered because he plays politics. That's why nobody watches it. And again, to mock Charlie Kirk after he died, right after he died. Again, no class, no comedy, no nothing. Just a bunch of nuts. It's just a left-wing mouthpiece show. That's all it is. But he goes on to say, no one who's been targeted by this president has flinched or bent or hidden under the bed. We're all standing up to him because we believe it will always be truth over Trump. This guy can't even spell truth. Eric Swalwell. Can't even spell it. This is who he is. Then he adds to it. He says, yeah, well, leading up to Prop 50, I had gone across the state to help give the 5 seats back that Texas had taken. And I heard two things from voters. People are scared and prices are high. Where were they under the Biden administration, folks? Did the Californians not feel that? In Biden's 4 years in office, did they not understand that? That prices rose anywhere from 25 to 30% more, and they're roughly in the same category right now with regards to energy, which President Trump has brought down. Seriously, I can remember vividly. January of 2021, gas where I was $2.53 a gallon. Got up to somewhere in the high fives where I was in California. I think the most I ever paid was $5.85. Almost over $3 more per gallon of gas. That adds up, folks. That wasn't President Trump. That was Joe Biden. And then California's saying they're scared, prices are high. Now all of a sudden they care? Well, then who did it? Who's doing it? Does Donald Trump run California? That'd be Gavin Newsom, by the way. Pushing gas taxes on you. The highest in the nation, by the way. So he's full of hot air. We know this. Go listen to the Hardball with Chris Matthews again. That's all he is. The hot air balloon. People are scared. Why are people scared? People are scared in California. Why? Because crime is rising out of control? Because Gavin Newsom won't fund Prop 36? Did they let crime run rampant for, 2-3 years after COVID? Rampant. I mean, it was ridiculous. Completely unsafe. Here we go. Host Casey Hunt said, who do you think the leader of the Democratic Party is? Okay. And then Swalwell, froze, of course. And he says, it's the Avengers right now. Oh, yeah. You got Jasmine Crockett. Oh, yeah. Coming to California, helping us elevate to vote for Prop 50. Oh, yeah. Ruben Gallego is going to Iowa, New Hampshire as a Marine. Latino, first in his family to... Who the hell cares if he's a Latino or the first in his family to go to college? What the hell's the guy say? By the way, he just came out and bashed a bunch of fellow Democrats, by the way, saying some of the women looked like transsexuals in a text. Oh, God, it's humorous. It really is. The first in his family. Who the hell cares if he's the first in his family to go to college? What the hell's that got to do with anything? I love how they point to these things like they mean something. Who cares? It's all ridiculous. Jasmine Crockett going to California. Who the hell cares what she says? But the funniest thing I love is he talks about the rule of law. Now the state of California is going to purposely redistrict so that they can steal a percentage of Republicans' access to send representation to Congress. That's all Prop 50 is. They're going to perfectly target certain Republicans to go in to the same districts, collapse the districts on themselves. So they're fighting amongst each other to stay in office. That's what it's going to come down to. And while giving away more Democratic representation. Now, roughly 43% of California is Republican. When you go inland California, obviously it gets a little bit higher. And they want to collapse those districts. Give more Democratic representation under the guise that Texas is stealing these seats. Now, here's the thing I've told you time and time again. Texas has greatly increased their population since 2020, since the last time they did their census. Why? Well, because of COVID, and of course the draconian lockdowns in places like California, New York, Illinois, all these other blue states that had these lunatic blue governors like mine, Gavin Newsom. And they destroyed their states. They absolutely destroyed their states. So people left. Businesses left. They aren't going to put up with this crap anymore. They're going to Texas. They're going to Florida. They're going to Tennessee. They're going to Arizona. They're moving away, folks. Going away. So, California's population dropped. And they actually lost a congressional seat as a result of that. That's how much the population changed over time. And it's continuing to do so under Gavin Newsom. Shocker of shocks. So, Texas's population since then has greatly increased. Lots of people are moving to Texas. It's a big state. No state income tax. It's a fairly free state. But this is what's happening right now. And they're saying, listen, we've got so many more people. It's not illegal in our Constitution. We can actually just redraw these maps again. And in that process, they're saying, well, now this is going to favor Republicans. Well, I'd hate to tell you, but most of the people leaving these blue states are probably Republicans. Not all, of course, but a lot of them are probably Republicans who have had enough of this crap in these blue states. You go ask any Californian who's ready to retire. Most of them will tell you, hey, once I get my retirement, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I'm not putting up with this anymore. They're sick of it. They're sick of dealing with this. The government malfeasance. You talk about the people, too, that have been affected with these forest fires and the Palisades and Malibu, Eaton Canyon, among other places. Where are they going to go? Where are some of these people that are getting shafted by the insurance companies? Where are they going to go? Are they going to be able to rebuild? Then you have that scumbag Gavin Newsom, that piece of garbage, actually putting through legislation so he can sell off the land to foreign investors. Land in which people own. He's going to give that away. I think it was $65 million selling off that beautiful beachfront land right off PCH. I can't even believe it. It's sickening. Absolutely sickening. And of course, they made a bill to bring in cheap rebuilding of the area. And the Palisades. It's an extremely wealthy area. They're not going to save you, these Democrats, just so we're all clear on that. So when people tell you they're scared, Swalwell, they're probably scared of you and your moronic party. Just thought I'd bring that up to you. So, it's just asinine what he talks about. But this is who these people are. Are you surprised by this? Of course not. Why would you be? Swalwell, what a joke he is. He's going to run for governor, too. And this black lesbian who was attacked at Gold's Gym by a dude who was pretending to be a woman. She went and spoke to, I played this for you, Scott Wiener. Of course, he, backed out on this. Oh, everyone can use whatever restroom they want. Okay. He got yelled at by this woman. It didn't go too well for him. He actually cowered in fear because he's a schmuck and a putz and a weakling. That's what Eric Swalwell is. That's all he is. He's just a gas man. Yep, that's all he is. God forbid he wins the gubernatorial race in California. You'll see everybody leave after that. You know who else is buying up land throughout the United States, folks? Bill Gates of hell. Bill, standing at the gates of hell, says that now that he owns one of every 4,000 acres of U.S. farmland. Isn't that nice? The computer geek is buying up farmland. Why? All his burgers are lab-grown. He doesn't need all that farmland for that. He's not harvesting any livestock. What's the sudden interest in farmland? You'd have to ask yourself. Well, Moneywise has this good article I'm going to read to you. It says, after Bill Gates of hell moved on from his role at Microsoft, right, as a computer geek, where he took IBM's program and just simply changed it a little bit and sold it to you as his own. The company that he founded, he then shifted his focus to philanthropic efforts with the Bill and Melinda Gates of Hell Foundation for Population Control. That's what it was first called, by the way. Did you know that? It was called the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for Population Control. Interesting. Sounds like a guy who cares about human life. Providing billions of dollars of capital to noteworthy projects every single year. Really, like what? What the hell's he done? Whose life has he made better other than his own? You have to ask yourself that. Where's this money that these guys put in? Go. Can they put some money into rebuilding infrastructure in major cities in which they live in? Or across America? Can they do something like that actually makes lives better? Of course not. But they're told, they give a lot of money. And you go, oh, wow, that's so great. Okay. Well, let me just tell you in this disclaimer, Bill Gates doesn't give a damn about you. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. That's it. And even though his net worth is $104.4 billion, a hell of a lot of money, according to Forbes, Gates' portfolio is widely diversified. Now, of course, he has his stock still in Microsoft, of course. But that accounts for just around $13 billion, just a little small segment of his overall wealth. So what else does the computer nerd have his investments in? Well, he's got public investments and other things. Think about Moderna, vaccinations. He's all obsessed with that. If he ever lands in India, he'll be arrested right away for what he's done to that country. And the rest of his fortune is spread out amongst private interests, accumulating more farmland. Why? What is this about? Why does Bill Gates want so much farmland? It says here that the recent estimates are that Bill Gates of hell owns roughly 270,000 acres of farmland around the United States. Now, Gates himself said in a recent Reddit post that he owns roughly 1 out of every 4,000 acres of U.S. farmland. Given that there are 893 million acres of U.S. farmland designated for that, this number appears to be roughly correct. Now, for instance, over the past 6 years, Gates has reported he spent roughly $113 million purchasing Nebraska farmland, of which now he owns 20,000 acres in the state alone. So the big question is, why? Why is Bill Gates of hell investing so heavily in this asset? Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, like the housing market, like BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Bill Gates of hell is buying up all the farmland, so you, the farmer, can't buy it, or the person that maybe wants to be a farmer or a rancher. But there's also something a little bit more nefarious here, and it doesn't have to do with anything philanthropic, of course. It has to do with loading his pockets with money. It says here that farmland is a broad asset class that refers to acreage, of course, that can be farmed on, right? So it's an attractive investment for those looking to hedge against inflationary periods. Now, according to a 2023 article from NASDAQ, the value of farmland has been shown to rise alongside inflation, with the value hitting U.S. farmland hitting somewhere around 10.2% in 2022, when the average rate of inflation was somewhere around only 8%. And that, again, that was at the first end of the tailspin of the Biden regime. So here's the thing. You buy the land up cheap, and now when inflation hits, again, which we're in a very high inflationary period, that land's going to go for much more money. Now, again, it's not developed land. It's just simply farmland. But think about it. Who's going to come in now? And if Gates decides to sell, who's going to be able to have the money that's going to be able to pay that much more for it? Only a select few group of people. People in his ilk, right? Or the people that can get the loans to purchase that land. It's not going to be your average farmer, folks. Or certainly not your small farmer or your small rancher. It's not going to be that. It's going to be these big corporations. Think about Tyson that owns the feedlots. We talked about this earlier this week. They buy it up. They buy it off Bill Gates of hell. He makes money off it. The big stay in power, and they work on that land. And you're told to, go stand in the unemployment line. Okay. So the thing about investing in physical farmland, though, is the price tag associated with large farms. Even small to medium-sized farms can be massive for them. So these are the assets that, again, they're not as easy to get financing for, particularly for investors and for those without any direct farming expertise. So you might have the idea, hey, I'm going to be a farmer. I'm going to, develop my own land. I'll build my home on the land. Be a nice little homestead. No, you're not going to get the loans for it. Because now look how much more money it is. So now the USDA and other organizations do provide programs for individuals to purchase farmland. But for all intents and purposes, this asset class is one of the most reserved for accredited investors. That means people with money. That's what it's going to come down to. And Gates knows this. And now Gates is the owner of a lot of this land. So I think we could all understand how this works and why they're doing this. So you have to ask yourself, why are they buying up all the single-family homes? Why are they buying all these units that are just recently built? These massive neighborhoods, all owned by the same person. Because they're going to be the ones that come out with a lot of money. And if they decide to rent it all of them out, well, they'll just rent them out, and you won't own anything. You'll own nothing and love it. Where have I heard that before? Other than the World Economic Forum. Yeah, so, Bill Gates of hell, not a great guy. Not a good guy. I wouldn't say. All right, folks, moving on. I want to talk about this, though. Just similarly to converse over to this. ZeroHedge says that Scandinavian countries are moving to suspend mandated use of Bovire, which is a methane-reducing additive designed to reduce bovine flatulence. Remember, AOC came out and said all this? It's cow flatulence that's causing global warming. Even though it's, obviously methane-releasing, which smells terrible, of course. But now they're saying it's a contributor to methane pollution. Of course, it's all the cows, right? It's the cow's problem now. It's not the exhaust of your car or automobile. It's not the factories that push out steam used through wet scrubbers to clean out all the pollutants that come with it. No, it's cow farts, right? That's what we're talking about. It's supposed to, obviously, the cow's supposed to eat it. And, of course, it's supposed to reduce the additive that reduces the climate-harming pollutant. So now, all of a sudden, methane is a climate-harming pollutant, just like carbon dioxide. Even though carbon dioxide isn't a pollutant, it's necessary for human life. Look at the carbon structure. Everyone needs it. Now, however, there are widespread reports of collapse reduced to feed intake of this new Bovire. I think is how you say it. And the cattle are coming down with fever, they're getting diarrhea, they're getting sick, they're getting significant drops in milk production. This is happening out in Denmark, too. This is where they're starting to see this. And again, they tried to mandate it, and cows were actually getting sick and dying. There's also reports of cow miscarriages. That means they're not bringing the calf to full term. Though most involved discomforts in the farmers reporting this about their cattle, and again, the improved after cessation of the supplement, a costly liability lawsuit may entail from this. So countries, for example, like I just told you, Denmark, made the additive mandatory, of course, because they want to save the environment, of course. For the inclusion in feed only, they have widespread reports and serious harms to the cows now. Norway and other countries have suspended the use of bovine, and again, it is also used in the United States, but it isn't required. Now, again, most reports involve sickness and reduced production in the dairy herds. So I want you to think about this. Of the atmosphere, just off the top of your head, how much do you think is methane? If you walk outside, how much of the air that you breathe in, how much of that is methane? Only 0.4% is carbon dioxide, which they're claiming is causing a meltdown of the environment. Also a big lie. But how much do you think is actual methane? Well, I'll let you think for a second, then I'll tell you the answer. The answer is 0.0003% of the overall atmosphere is methane. Apparently, this is causing a global meltdown for climate change. Right? That's what they're coming out to tell you. So now the cattle have to eat this food ridden with this new additive that's causing cows to become sick, killing the offspring, all this other nonsense that is not necessary. I told you before, cows should be eating grass. That's what they should be eating. That's it. Grass. That's what they're supposed to eat. That's what cows are supposed to eat. And now they're eating these grain, this junk, and it's causing the livestock to become sick. And now they're, of course, in Denmark, they're bringing lawsuits against this and pushing back. It's all part of a concerted effort to destroy the beef industry and the dairy industry. This is what it comes down to. So you can eat Bill Gates of Hell's lab-grown beef, if you want to call it beef. I don't think you can even call it that. They don't want you to have a grass-fed steak or burger or whatever else might be out there. They don't want this. But look at this. It says they're still advertising the benefits of the supplement. Of course they are. They want to make money off this. And the question, of course, is the manufacturer liable? Well, of course they are. Cows are fine. Now they're eating this junk with these new additives in it. Now the cows are getting sick. Cause and demand, folks. Cause and effect. There we go. Every dairy could use additional diversified income. That's where Bovire from Elcano comes in. Bovire is one of the most scientifically researched and recognized methane reduction feed ingredients globally. Bovire provides an access point for dairy producers to be financially rewarded for reducing their dairy carbon footprint by decreasing their herds' methane emissions. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. What does methane have to do with carbon? I mean, it's really so stupid, folks. And I just told you, it's not even, it's a greenhouse gas, but it's not anything that is overwhelming in the atmosphere. And it certainly isn't causing any type of global meltdown. In fact, we're in for one of the coldest winters in for a long time. So maybe invest in a jacket and not not lab-grown meat. I'll just put it to you that way. But now, if these reports are accurate, by the way, the manufacturer can now be sued for a design defect. And, of course, lying in their statement in the light of all the statements that they said above without these possible warnings. Yeah, look at that. You think you're giving your livestock something good while doing something good for the environment. What happens? Less milk production. And, by the way, farmers, especially small farmers, can't even allow for that right now, too. They're not going to make any money. Same thing goes with ranchers. They got to keep replenishing their herds. Now the livestock is dying off. They're not producing calves like they once were, if they're using this. So not a good thing. Again, I told you should be eating grass-fed, 100% grass-fed, by the way. That's what you need to look for on your labeling. Make sure you're not getting loaded with antibiotics, certain types of hormones. Certainly not anything that's been given the COVID shot as well. That'll be also found in the meat. So eat clean, eat local if you can. Stay away from this, folks. You got to. Whatever the cow eats, you're also ingesting as well. Just understand that. But again, all part of a big effort. Destroying the herds. Destroying the real cattle. They don't want you to have that. Because they're nefarious. These people are sick. Sick in the head. Also sick in the head, I got to tell you about this article. It says that there's madness in Minnesota. It says radical Dem judge Sarah West overturns jury's guilty verdict and frees Somali immigrant who stole $7.2 million in Medicaid fraud scheme. Can you believe this? There is no rule of law. There's a two-tier justice system out there, and sadly, we're not in it. But here we go. She was appointed by former Democrat Governor Mark Dayton, and she tossed out a jury unanimous guilty verdict, setting Abdi Fattah Yusuf, a Somali immigrant, convicted of masterminding a massive Medicaid fraud ring that siphoned off $7.2 million from the taxpayers. You idiot taxpayers, you. Now, a jury had found Yusuf guilty in August on 6 counts of aiding and abetting theft by swindle, following evidence that his home care company billed Medicaid for hundreds of thousands of dollars in phantom care, padding bills for services never, ever delivered. Now, prosecutors documented many of these funds were funneled into luxury cars, high-end clothing, and other extravagant personal purchases. But the Judge West, rather than uphold the jury's verdict, claimed that the case hinged on circumstantial evidence and offered other reasonable interferences for the billing irregularities. So in other words, it wasn't Yusuf's fault. It was simply a billing irregularity that caused the entire problem to happen. He didn't buy all this wonderful fancy stuff for himself. And again, she argued that prosecutors failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Yusuf was personally responsible for the fraud. He had no idea. And of course, she issues an acquittal. So he gets to go free. Did he have to bring back any of the money, do we know? God only knows. So now the jurors, the prosecutors, and these state lawmakers are stunned by this. With one juror even telling reporters that he believed the evidence was demonstrated obvious guilt. I mean, obviously. How else would he come up with a $7.2 million? You don't wake up one day and see $7.2 million in your bank account and go, well, guess it just arrived. I don't know what else to say about that. Now, the state's attorney general has already filed an appeal warning the decision undermines public trust. Well, of course it does. You put these stupid Democrat judges in there, and they're destroying the society in and of itself. Even the jurors couldn't believe the decision. But again, these judges aren't acting on behalf of the law. They're acting on behalf of ideology. We're seeing this time and time again. Clearly, there was evidence presented to the jury, enough that every single one of them saw that this man was guilty for what he had done. Did he just think that he earned $7.2 million the legal way? Here we go. One juror, said that we didn't take our job lightly. We went through a lot of evidence and discussed a lot of it. Took our time, but we all came up to an agreement pretty easily. Now, the Attorney General's office filed an appeal on Monday, and prosecutors are rarely able to appeal an acquittal, but they can in this case since the judgment overturns the will of the jury. Now, will Yusuf go free? Will he become a free man? Will he leave? But the idea that he was wrongfully accused and didn't commit fraud or racketeering seems a little bit odd to me. Seems a bit odd to me. Look at this, buying luxury cars. It's unbelievable what goes on in this country. So Yusuf gets to go free. Now, of course, if you or I did this, we'd be in handcuffs before the trial even started. That brings me to my next important case here. These activist judges. Activist judges, not just in Minnesota, but all across the country. They were put in by these lunatic Democrat leaders, and they are destroying the fabric of the society around them. And since it doesn't pertain to them, it doesn't really matter. so long as they can virtue signal to the public about how high and mighty they are. This is the Washington Examiner. Says Trump and Sean Duffy slam Pritzker the pig's soft on crime policies after a Chicago woman was set on fire on a train. This case is very devastating to even read about, that this could happen, that people are this evil in our society. But Trump took to Truth Social on Tuesday, writing that soft on crime policies like cashless bail under Governor Pritzker are responsible for the horrific attack on Bethany McGee on Chicago's L train. He says that we cannot allow senseless crimes to continue under Democratic leadership, just like the murder of Irina Zarutka in Charlotte, and now this crime against Bethany. Justice must be served. So what happened here? What the hell's going on here? Well, I'll tell you. These soft-on-crime politicians in these Dem-run cities, and of course these state politicians and judges alike, the ones that are appointed by these people, are getting people killed. Where is the public safety in this, that these people are said to represent in these Dem cities? Where are they? Where's the concern for the fellow citizen? Where the hell is the public outcry? Where is it? It's nowhere to be seen. Now, Mayor Brandon Johnson, the genius that he is, came out and said this is an insulated incident. Oh, really? Your city's a war zone every single weekend where parts of the city are, being shot up. And, the mayor says, let's put them right back on the street. Can't do anything about it. We can't do anything about it. Are you noticing a trend here, though? Logan Federico's killer, Alexander Dickey, arrested 39 times, out in the street somehow. Irina Zarutka's killer, DeCarlos Brown, arrested 14 times prior to this, put back on the streets, just stabs a woman to death. Says he got that B word. And now, of course, we have Bethany McGee's killer, Lawrence Reed, the Grammy Award winner, arrested 72 times. Yet he's out on the streets again. Does that make any sense to anybody listening to the show? Black men killing young white women because they aren't holding people accountable in these cities. And these are all targeted attacks. Each and every one of them. And again, these are just a sliver of the ones that we continue to see out there. But it's not being discussed in the news media, folks. Why not? What, are you afraid to talk about it? Because it's a black on white issue? Well, hey, this is prevalent now. Black men killing young white women. It's disgusting. It really isn't getting talked about. I don't know why. But what it has to happen to make a change? Or does it have to take killing an innocent person that you know by the scum of the earth to get them off the streets? Now, of course, I blame the politicians and, of course, these judges who take this soft-on-crime approach. Again, look no further than Brandon Johnson. Look at his leadership in the city. What did he say after the Christmas tree lighting ceremony? When so-called teens shot up the place, later killing a 14-year-old boy. What do you have to say about that? Well, it happens. Sometimes these things happen. What? This is what he said the other day. I need you to listen to this. I mean, it should make you disgusted that this is the type of leadership we have in America today.
We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. We've already tried that. And we've ended up with the largest prison population in the world without solving the problems of crime and violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down.
Okay, so the schmuck, to his chagrin, got an applause after that disgusting remark. But he says we can't incarcerate our way out of violence because it's racist, of course. So it's not racist that a black man stabs a young woman in a Charlotte subway? For no reason? She didn't do anything to him? Bethany McGee sitting on a train, just minding her own business again, doused with gasoline and then lit on fire. She has 60% of her body now covered in burns. She's in critical condition right now. That's not racism? Well, if arresting someone who commits a crime is racist, what the hell do you call this? It's an absolute tragedy. It's a lack of justice. Where is the justice? There is none. The criminals rule the streets. That's what it comes down to. And yes, while I know not all of Chicago is a war zone, there are problems in this city constantly. And again, Chicago is known around the year for its problems with violent crime, of course, recording hundreds of homicides each year. Many of our major cities do. But again, this is driven largely by shootings concentrated in a small number of South Side and West Side neighborhoods, where most victims and offenders being young men, particularly young black men. Now, abolishing prisons is just one of Mayor Johnson's many bright ideas of questions of law and order. But I want to refer him, maybe the idiot doesn't know, go look at El Salvador. El Salvador was once the crime capital of the world as a country. Crime was out of control. That's where the wonderful MS-13 gang, the genesis is there. And what did he do when Bukele came into office? Did he say, well, we can't incarcerate our way out of this. There's nothing we can do. Obviously, we've got to let them run roughshod over our people, the innocent people. What did he say instead? We're going to arrest these people. We're going to put them in these prisons. They're not going to ever see the light of day again. And seems to be working out pretty well. Their crime rate has dropped significantly. And what do we see? As their incarceration rate went up among these criminals, the crime dropped drastically in El Salvador. In fact, it's probably better than here in the United States because, again, they're holding people accountable. They're bringing them to jail and they're never getting out. There's no, well, we feel really bad. No, they're going to jail. They're criminals. They cannot exist in society like these people we're talking about right now. And it's not a racist thing to say that. But again, that's always what the main time. It's racist to hold somebody accountable because of their actions. Give me a break. Disgusting. Again, does it have to happen to one of your loved ones? Someone you know? Before you say, wake up and say, what the hell is going on here? Again, this is a city where people are actually attacking ICE agents and they're applauding it. Johnson went out earlier and said, we don't have illegal aliens. I don't know if that's from some sort of sci-fi message that you wish to add, is what he told a reporter when he was brought up with the term illegal alien. And then he went on to say, he said, the term for my people were slaves. Do you want to use that term too? I mean, the guy's an idiot. The term illegal aliens in our Constitution. Maybe he could read it once and figure this out. But is J.B. Pritzker the pig doing anything to stop this? Attack of agents? We actually saw shootings at the Broadview facility not too long ago, where actual people inside, not even ICE agents, were killed. But yet they applaud this behavior. This is why ICE agents have to cover up who they are, because they know these people are hell-bent on coming after them. They've got no support from Brandon Johnson to uphold the law, federal law. Again, that trumps state law. And J.B. Pritzker, the same, has done nothing. That's why you heard people clapping after people were shot at a Christmas tree lighting ceremony. That's his response to everything. There he goes. We're talking about undocumented individuals that are human beings. Everyone's a human being. Okay. Well, sorry, Mayor. There are some people who are human beings that do awful things to people. And especially undocumented individuals, as you call them. I call them illegal aliens. That's what they're legally called. It's not racist to call them that. They're here illegally. They're not supposed to be here. They have no jurisdiction to be in this country. They have a right to due process, don't get me wrong. But they have no right to be here. They certainly don't have any right to come here and kill people, rob people, steal, get benefits, flood the systems. Remember Cloward and Piven? I told you about this. Cloward and Piven, destroy the existing system to take everything down. That's what they want to do here, right? That's why you saw Cloward and Piven on the border with Biden. Overwhelm the Border Patrol so they can't do anything. So, hey, everyone can just come on in. We're not even going to try to stop you. Then, of course, they ordered them not to do anything. But here he goes. The last thing I'm going to do is accept the type of racist, nasty language to describe human beings. Yet he does not a damn thing. Doesn't lift a finger. Did he call the parents of Bethany McGee and say, I'm here for you? I'll get to the bottom of this? This won't happen again. No, he didn't say anything about that. Doesn't matter if illegal aliens are shooting each other up. No, it's okay. It's fine. Hey, people have problems. They're isolated incidents. That's what I'll tell you. These people don't care for you at all. Just thought I'd, again, tell you that. All right, really quickly, let's move on to some foreign issues before we go into our Thanksgiving Day. So Breitbart says, Russia says no Ukraine peace deal updates until U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff arrives in Moscow. What's going on here, folks? Well. So that Russian presidential aide, Yuri Yushkov, stated on Wednesday that his government has yet to discuss the U.S. proposal of the 28-point peace plan with the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, who is supposed to arrive in Moscow. President Trump confirmed in a statement on his Truth Social site that Witkoff has now been tasked with traveling to Moscow following vigorous negotiations with Ukraine led by Secretary of State Little Marco Rubio last weekend. And reports suggest that Witkoff will arrive in Russia next week, indicating that the proposed Thanksgiving deadline for a peace agreement will not hold. I told you this already. It's not a shock. The president, who had proposed a soft deadline for Thanksgiving to end the conflict, told reporters that the deadline for me is when it's over. Okay, I guess that makes sense, because Russia holds all the cards. The White House reportedly drafted this 28-point peace plan, which I read to you yesterday, and presented it to the Ukrainian government over the weekend, with Zelensky confirmed that his team is working to negotiate a deal that properly addresses his government's concerns. And some reports since have claimed that the 28-point peace plan has been reduced to about 19 or 20 points. Isn't that interesting? They're losing this conflict completely, yet they're going to dictate the negotiating terms? I think not. So what's going on here? What's going on? And by the way, what do the Russians say? Now, of course, the Russians confirmed that the meeting is going to be held with Witkoff. But again, they denied anything about addressing this peace plan, however, and talked about practical security issues. And Yushkov didn't indicate that he had these talks or discussed them about the exchanges with the Ukrainians without setting a definitive end to this war. So, what's really happening? Well, I can tell you that these sanctions are causing trouble with cash inside Russia because, again, they don't just print money like we do all over the place. But here's the thing we need to understand here. Russia's winning this conflict. Russia will end the war on their own terms, on their own provisions, and they will see it out till the end. And they will not give any type of concessions to the Ukrainians that are losing this conflict. The final Ukrainian battalions are surrounded now by Russian forces. That's been said by many smart people on this issue, Scott Ritter being one of them, of whom I follow closely. But we have to understand something. You have hundreds of thousands of deserters that get brought up in the Ukrainian army. The ones that do fight are going to the front lines largely and dying, sadly enough. And on a much higher ratio, there's more Ukrainians dying than Russians. I'm told for every dead Russian, you have 36 dead Ukrainians. This is not a sustainable war. This is not a war that's going to last. Zelensky's days are numbered, folks. I don't have any other way to tell it to you. But they're numbered. He's already the de facto president. And he's not going to prevent Russia from stopping this. And Russia's already cutting off access to electricity and heat. And as many of us know, Ukraine is going to get violently cold in the upcoming months here. And again, this falls solely on Zelensky's leadership, or lack thereof. So, you have the power structure elites inside Ukraine that will not abide by Zelensky if he signs this peace plan as exists. That's why they're saying, well, we can agree to 19, maybe 20 of them. It's not going to last. And again, this is totally going to change too over time. We'll see that happen. The reality of the matter is that while some neocon warhawks like Keith Kellogg, who was recently fired for his gross negligence and, of course, incompetence, more Americans in D.C. are coming to the reality that Russia has won. I've been telling you they've won for several months now. And again, I believe that this 28-point plan will be largely reduced, and it will be given by the Russians to Steve Witkoff. And then again, he's not going to sell the Russians anything. They're going to tell him what's what. That's what it's going to come down to. And by the way, I'm told, again, Scott Ritter said this on Judge Ada Napolitano's podcast, Judging Freedom, that Lavrov let Rubio have it in an undiplomatic form, but he told him straight out, this is not the way it's going to go down. It's just not going to happen this way. He told our Secretary of State, this is the way it's going to go. And he's not even involved in these peace negotiations as of right now. So the Russians are going to look at this, they'll pick out what they like from it, and they will make the definite terms about what is going to happen moving forward. Otherwise, the war is going to continue on. And again, they're absolutely fine with this. They're not blinking an eye to this. And they're not going to cower because, Steve Witkoff's there or Marco Rubio has proposed whatever peace plan to them. Just simply not going to happen the way people think it's going to happen. Folks, by the way, really quickly, before I leave the show today for you, and we hit Thanksgiving tomorrow, I just want to talk about this in Front Page Magazine. It says UK's leftist government works to destroy the freedom of speech. I don't want to stop it and tell you, but, we hit Thanksgiving tomorrow. Obviously a day of reflection about the things that we have, things that we should be thankful for. And we should be thankful that we have the freedom to speak our minds in this country. That's part of our God-given Bill of Rights that we have. But now we have Britain's Labour government, like leftists anywhere, working hard to curtail the freedoms of its citizens, really to destroy the common culture and national character of the country it's supposed to be protecting and defending. We see this with Democrats and leftists in our country. I just read it to you. Look at Brendan Johnson. Look at J.B. Pritzker. Look at Gavin Newsom. Look at Eric Swalwell. They pervert the Constitution to take away more of your rights. And now the idea of course, the Labour's new definition of Islamophobia is not wanted by the majority of the public in any form. Is what a poll found. It said that the poll found that 4 out of 5 Britons surveyed recognized that to give Islamophobia an official definition and prosecute it accordingly amounts to a Trojan horse, bringing the destruction of freedom of speech. Only 1/5 of the public backs creating either a new definition of Islamophobia, which exists here in the United States, or of anti-Muslim hate, according to 1,500 adults. And of course, recognizing how unpopular it's to march towards pro-Sharia totalitarianism is inside the UK, the Labour Party, which is destroying England, has tried to shift its emphasis to the definition from Islamophobia to anti-Muslim hatred, in the face, of course, of major backlash, with critics saying that it has warned now that it will threaten freedom of speech. Well, no kidding. Of course it is. And it always will. But the idea that the public might accept criminalization of speaking out against what they view as their nation catering to illegal invaders, that be many Muslims, under the guise of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim hatred. This is just another way to shut people up and, again, take away their rights to speak their minds. That's what it comes down to, folks. That's what it comes down to. And again, you're seeing this inside the United States as well, but it's happening on a much smaller scale. You can't really get around freedom of speech in this country, but they're not stopping. They're going to continue doing this. This is what they wanted to do. And will they succeed in the UK? Home of the Magna Carta? It seems like they are moving very, very close to that. They're tiptoeing with tyranny inside the UK. Folks, thank you so much for being here. As always, have a blessed Thanksgiving. I will have a show out for you tomorrow, so you can check that out if you need to. And I'll see you on Friday on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless each and every one of you.